So we've been doing this, everyone. We've been doing this once a month now since December, and we're gonna keep doing them. This is to provide you with portfolio help. If you are applying to art schools, if you're applying to LCAD, and you are working on your portfolio still, obviously the best thing to do is to reach out to your counselor for a one-on-one portfolio review. Something that's interesting that I found is that this year I feel like I have less students that are um, like looking for a one-on-one, which I think try to keep an open mind because that is honestly the best way to make the strongest portfolio is to have somebody have one of the LCAT counselors look at your art and then give you feedback on how to improve it and make it better. So that's what I would suggest. But we're having these big group portfolio sessions so that you can see examples of good portfolios. So it's 5:01. I'm gonna wait like another 4 minutes. I'm gonna get some water. Basha, I'll be right back. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. And make sure you let everyone know to have their questions ready.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so as Ramon is getting his water and we're gonna allow you guys to trickle in and such, I just want to let you guys know that if you would like to put your questions in the chat during the presentation, that way I can help feed those and we can get those answered for you guys. Also, I wanted to let you guys know too that you can also, with the React at the toolbar at the bottom of Zoom, you can raise your hand, right? So if you guys ever want to raise your hand to ask a question or get our attention, right? You can go ahead and use the React tab at the bottom. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat. And we'll get started here in a few minutes. So yeah, any of you guys trickling in, we're gonna get started here in just a few minutes. Get your questions ready. Um, and we'll do our best. Lots of good information to come here in a bit. I'm going to just be idle. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone has water. Water is good. Also, I'd love to hear what everyone's major is. If you want to go ahead and like put in the chat. Hi, Erin. So glad to see you here. If you want to go ahead and in the chat, type out your major or what you're interested in applying for. I'd love to see that. Illustration, yes. Game art, awesome. Keep them coming. Animation. Ooh. Here we go. We got ED with the entertainment design, another game art student. Where's graphic design at? Anybody that's here for graphic design? Painting and drawing and painting. Love to see it. How's it going, Sarah? So glad you got it here. Want to major in graphic design. Awesome. Good to hear it, Ishmael. Might get this disconnected later, but I'll try to rejoin. No problem. You guys can hop in and out as you can. This will probably go on for like an hour, give or take 15 minutes or something like that. Megan says painting and drawing with illustration emphasis. Excellent. Experimental animation. Awesome. And then I wanted to let you guys know too that this just launched yesterday, but if you have an open application with LCAD for fall 2025, you are able to have access to our student Discord channel. It's a great way to get connected. It's a great way to easily ask questions, get feedback from not just us counselors, but also with your peers, your fellow inquiring students. So in order to get access to that Discord server, though, you have to open an application, okay? So make sure that you go about doing that. You can join. There should be an invite that had been sent your way. If not, reach out to one of us and we can see what went wrong and we can help you get access to that. But feel free to use that, right? And he's
Yeah. Join the Discord. Remember that
great.
you do have to have an application open, but it's free to apply to LCAD. So
Why not?
it costs you nothing. And when you open an application, you're basically telling us that you're really considering applying to LCAD, and we're going to give you more of our attention and more of our resources to help you with your application. So go to the website, open a free application. You have plenty of time to complete it. There's no deadline to apply to LCAD, so you actually have tons of time to work on your application. But in the meantime, you can hop on the Discord. You can meet other students that are applying. People are sharing their art. People are sharing pictures of their pets. People are talking about, the majors that they're applying to, all kinds of cool stuff. All right, I'm gonna open up my presentation. So, a few things that I'm kind of assuming that most of you, since you're getting our emails, that means that you've indicated interest in LCAD as a school. That means that you probably have been to our website. That means that you probably have heard from a counselor or made contact with a counselor at this point. If not, I'm going to cover some basic stuff just so that we're all on the same page to make sure that everyone knows the important stuff. Um, and then, whatever questions come up, like Basha was saying, put them in the chat. You can also just raise your hand, and I'm happy, you can turn on your mic and ask questions. Um, you don't have to turn on your camera if you don't want. It's up to you. You will see my cats in the background of my of my camera over here. Basha, are your cats in the room with you? I know you have more cats than I do.
I have one sleeping right next to me.
Okay.
She's my
That
buddy,
that's
so we're
adorable.
good.
That's
Um,
adorable.
but she's been out. She's old. She's gonna be out forever. And also really quick, if I see questions in the chat, um, do you want me to, I don't want to like interject too often during your presentation. Do you want me to also raise my hand? Do you want me to just respond to the student in the chat?
Dude, interject. I'm fine with that.
All right. So first off, is it fine if I'm a junior in high school? Isabel wants to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe you cannot open up an application until the beginning of your senior year of high school, but you can let us know that you're interested in LCAD as early as you want, and you can sign up for emails and communication. So, as soon as you do that, you will start to receive help and resources and attention from us. But you do need to have an application open in order to join the Discord, and that is not going to be until your senior year of high school, right? So, but honestly, the best thing to do if you know you're going to be applying to art schools once you're a senior, then you want to start working on your art skills as early as possible, obviously. And we can help with that. We can help you with your fundamentals. We can help you with your figure drawing, with your design, with taking better photos. I mean, we offer so much help to people that ask for it. And you want to be one of those people. If you want the help, it's kind of like a private art coach. Like you literally can hit up your counselor whenever you need help. You can meet with them regularly on Zoom. It's pretty cool. We want you to get better. We want you to achieve your goals. So that means even before you're a senior, you should be working on that stuff. Basha, do you have any like freshmen or sophomore, juniors in high school that you're working with?
I definitely have a couple sophomores actually that I'm working with. We're not as constantly in contact, but I check in with them every now and then.
Mhm.
They ask me, advice on where to take sketchbook kind of direction. It's pretty chill. It's not until like probably second semester junior and then like the first time that you're a senior, that's like kind of crunch time, right? To really take things
Yeah.
seriously.
What would you say is the number one piece of advice that you find yourself giving to high school students?
Just draw from life, draw like crazy, draw like you're obsessed with it. It's
Yeah.
not gonna hurt you.
Yeah. I
I
mean, I don't
promise.
know. Sometimes I open up my sketchbook to draw something and
You
nothing
know,
I draw looks good, and that definitely hurts.
I
So,
think, but I think that's character building.
yeah, yeah.
I think I have had a lot of professors and I have said this to my own students in the past where you have to understand how to approach every bad drawing in order to get to a few good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't be scared of things that you haven't even already, or you can't be scared of things you haven't done yet. You got to just
Okay.
try.
That's very good advice. I like that. Shoot, that advice. I feel like that applies to every stage of life.
Everything.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen now, and we're gonna start at the website, at LCAD's website. For those of you that are interested in starting an application, literally up here right away, you can go to apply and you can start your free application. You literally just create a username and a password, and then boom, you've got an application going. And then the first steps are just to fill out some basic information. So as far as like sending us your like high school grades or transcripts and sending us like your essay and sending us your portfolio, that stuff comes way later in the process. You do not have to do it all at once, okay? So as soon as you click start your application and create a username and password, that's it. That's all you need to do to get going, and then you can join the Discord if you want to do that. Now, real quick, I'll show you I'm just gonna give like a sneak peek of what the Discord looks like from my desktop, so you can see it's pretty lit. There's a lot. I mean, we just opened this what yesterday? There
Yeah.
are a lot of people in here. I haven't been on yet today, but you can see there's like a lot going on. There's housing updates. You can ask questions here. We have a bunch of helpful links to different things, portfolio guidelines, housing, campus tours, how to transfer credits. We have,
Really quick, right?
yeah,
Quick question. So, in terms of students that are looking to transfer instead of being first year freshmen,
yeah,
what can we do for offering them advice for classes that they can take for like a year
yes.
community college?
So we actually have a transfer specialist. His name's Nick Basie. Nick is a really nice person, and he is our transfer specialist. So he's the person, if you reach out to us and say, hey, I'm a transfer student, I'm at community college, I need help. Nick will be the one to reach out to you, and we'll go over all of these requirements and explain all of your options, and we'll even help you choose your college classes, your community college classes, so that you know you're taking classes that will transfer to LCAD when it's time to come. So yeah, we have a whole counselor dedicated just to helping you with the transfer process. Okay. His name's Nick. He's a really nice guy. So definitely follow up with your counselor or Basia. You can take their name and you can have Nick reach out to them. It's up to you.
Yep. I'm also going to, anytime that we mention anything important or any emails or anything like that, someone to get in contact with, I'm going to drop their email into the chat for you guys. I'll repeat myself. I don't mind at all. Okay.
Cool, cool. So yeah, you saw the Discord. Um, this meeting is being transcribed. Oh, you know what you should do? You should start the recording.
I already did.
Okay, good.
It's recorded.
Okay, cool. That's the thing that I always forget. Oh my God. I so many times have I forgotten to hit record, and then halfway through I'm like, oh man.
Okay.
Oh
I got you.
well. All right, cool. So yeah, just to finish up the little peek into the Discord, you join the Discord, you let us know if you're accepted, you let us know if you've deposited, you let us know what major you are, and then we'll assign you stuff, and then we'll assign you your different roles, and then there's a group chat. Like there's more than 50 messages since I first hopped in.
Yeah.
People are just chatting, introducing themselves. You can introduce yourself here. You can talk about your favorite stuff here. You can get crit and feedback on your art here if you want. You can just share some of your art here. There's memes. This is my favorite page. I'm sure yours too, Basha. My favorite server on the Discord is the pet photos. Uh,
Another quick question.
yes.
Um, Isabella says, I'm currently in AP drawing where my concentration is on surrealism painting. Any tips on how to steer myself towards game art and the fundamentals?
Oh, yes. So that actually leads me perfectly to the next thing I was going to talk about. On the website, if you go under admissions and you go here in the first row under portfolio information, if you know which major you're interested in, then you can go to the major here and we have portfolio guidelines for every single major. So, for example, for game art, you can click on this and it opens you up the portfolio guidelines, and you can see an overview of what we're expecting from your portfolio, such as how many pages we're looking for, and then the type of pages that we're looking for, like what kind of art content are we looking for in your game art portfolio: figure drawing, observational drawing, visual development and world building, environment designs, keyframe illustrations. So remember, these are just guidelines, but We're telling you very directly, this is what we want to see from you if you're applying to this major. And we give you a description, we explain what the thing is, like figure drawing. We'll even suggest how many pages of figure drawing you should show us. And or even showing you visual examples of what we're looking for. So I think this is super helpful. I don't know why more art schools don't do this. We even put like boxes here so you could check it off like you're checking off a list of what you're working on. Now, in terms of your surrealist drawing class, one thing that's important to remember is, while it's good to take art classes because that is going to expose you to different types of art making, it's going to expose you to different materials and techniques. It's good to just make more art because we get better at it that way and it's fun to make. It feels creative. Not every art class that we take is necessarily going to help us with our art school portfolio, especially if you're applying to something specific like game art. Game art is looking for these things. Nowhere in here will you see surrealist drawings. Now, that doesn't mean that your character designs can't have like a surreal element to them, but these are some pretty specific things where we're looking for. Don't be shocked if none of your art from your surrealist drawing class ends up in your portfolio. Okay, what I always tell students is this: when you're thinking about making your portfolio to apply to art school, you should contact each art school that you're interested in and try to find out what they're looking for. Okay. I think the wrong thing to do is to just take whatever art you've made and put it all into a folder and say, oh, here's my art portfolio. That's not really an art portfolio. That's a collection of what you've made, but a portfolio should have a direction. A portfolio, there should be a point to a portfolio, not just being like whatever you have, laying around that you've made. Okay. And I think that's super important to be aware of. Okay. So if you're applying to animation at LCAD, it's a very different portfolio. There are some things that overlap. For instance, we're still looking for life drawings, but now in animation, we're looking for expression sheets. We're still looking for character poses, but now we're looking for storytelling scenes. If you apply to graphic design and digital media, that's a different portfolio. Now we're looking for, there's an ice cream truck right outside my apartment. Sorry. I love my neighborhood. But yeah, it's loud. Um,
Can't hear it. You're all good.
okay, can you hear it?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay,
I
cool.
have a couple questions concerning illustration actually from a couple people.
Yes, go for it.
One from V saying, would missing a category or having not as strong of a category affect our acceptance rate or the merit scholarship? For illustration, do you have a recommendation of how many for each category? And then also for illustration from Aaron, um, for the comics requirement for illustration or like the sequential art section, can our
Mhm.
submission be wordless or lack typography?
Oh, these are good questions. Okay, I'll hit the first one first.
Okay.
Will not having every section represented in your portfolio, or not having or a section not being very good, will that impact your chances of getting accepted and your merit scholarship? Yes, absolutely. Okay, but remember, it's all relative. So now we're looking at the guidelines for illustration. Okay, we're looking for creative problem solving, observational drawing, figure drawing, environment pieces, hero images, editorial illustrations, sequential illustrations. First of all, remember that these are guidelines, they're not requirements. Okay. We are not requiring any of these. So if you don't have one, that's okay. Now, if you have all of them, is that better? Yeah. I mean, probably it's going to be better, but we're also looking for quality. Okay. We're not just looking for quantity. So let's say you are giving us every single section in your portfolio, but let's say your sequential illustrations are just not very good. Maybe everything else is looking really solid, and maybe your sequential illustrations just don't look that great. Okay, you haven't spent a lot of time doing it. Shoot, comic book pages are really hard to do. Okay, your counselor might tell you, you know what? just take those sequential illustrations out of your portfolio. You don't need to have them in there. So why have something bad in your portfolio just because you feel you have to show everything? You do not have to show everything. And this is where meeting with your counselor and showing them your portfolio before you submit it is going to help you and help your score and help your scholarship. Let your counselor tell you whether or not you should have it in there, okay? Now let's say you don't have all of these sections. Let's say you only have the first three, okay? You only have creative problem solving, observational drawing, and figure drawing, and that's it, okay? And let's say somebody else has all of them. If you're really good at figure drawing, like really good, your figure drawing is just like masterful, but you only have these three sections, you're going to get a pretty good score. Why? Because your figure drawing is amazing. Okay. Now, let's say you're somebody that has all of these things, but overall your skill set is not very high. You might get the same score as the person who has great figure drawing, but only has three sections. So it's all relative. Okay. We're not just judging your portfolio on how many of these things you show, we're also judging on the quality. So this again is how your counselor can let you know and help you and give you feedback on what's the best of the best that you're making, and let's focus on that and let's put that in your portfolio. Okay. Um, if I haven't underscored this enough, contact your counselor, show them your art before you submit your portfolio, get their feedback. It's going to help you. The second question was about illustration, right? What was it specifically, Basha? Do you remember?
Yes. It are comics that do not have words or dialogue or typography involved. Are those okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Storyboards are okay as well. It doesn't have to be comics. Yeah. All right. So these are the guidelines, okay? Go to our website, go under admissions at the very top here, not academics, go under admissions, go under undergraduate, and go to portfolio information, and you'll end up at this page with all the guidelines and some other helpful stuff, okay? Um, so let's see, I covered the Discord. I covered the website, how to open an application, how to access your guidelines for your portfolio for whichever major you're applying to. Um, so far, I mean, we're what? We're like 20 minutes in. Um, I hope this already has been helpful, right? Because if you didn't know these things, I feel like these are the most important things to know right off the bat, okay? Once you do contact your counselor for a portfolio meeting, it's probably going to be about 30 minutes. It's going to be on Zoom. You can actually go to our calendar. We'll give you a link to our calendar, and you can go to our calendar and you can select the time slot that works for you, and you can schedule your meeting like that. And then we're going to give you feedback on your art, and we're going to suggest resources such as line of action. Those of you that are practicing figure drawing and don't know about this resource, it's a really great way to get access to photos of models of figure drawing models that you can practice drawing. It's totally free. It's called line of action. You would go under draw and figure study, and then you can select what kind of photos you want to look at. I always select covered models, I select all genders, I select adults. And in terms of how long, how much time I'm going to have to draw each drawing, each photo, because it's timed, I have all the same length. And then just for example purposes, I choose 30 seconds, but you can choose up to 10 minutes, or you can choose even more time if you want. And then you hit get drawing. Now, if you look at the timer in the corner, up in the corner of the screen here, I have 30 seconds to draw this. And remember, you can change the time. You can make it 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And then after 30 seconds, it switches to the next. And now I have 30 seconds or however much time I asked for to draw this photo. And then it switches again. And now I have however much time to draw this photo. And then it switches again. And then I have however much time to draw this photo. So this is a great way to practice your figure drawing if you can't get in front of a live model, which is always the best, okay? And if you're doing this, you're using this as a resource, remember to you can still draw from life. It doesn't have to be a professional model. You can just draw your family members. You can just go into the next room, go into the kitchen, into the living room, whatever. Someone's watching TV or watching a movie, and you can just sit and you can sketch them. That try to draw from life whenever possible. But line of action is a really great resource, and I recommend it to every student that I work with. So
Really quick, Ray.
yeah.
Couple things. So, first of all, wanted to just remind students that if they don't know who their counselor is right now, if they want, they can drop their zip code in the chat, and Jason is here who
Oh,
can then
nice.
figure out who their counselor is, and we can match you up with them. And
Perfect.
then second, we have another question.
Yes.
Um, I don't, do we have like more of a presentation that you wanted to get to, or are we just good doing like these questions and
Yeah,
such?
no, I can answer
Or,
questions as we go through the because I have a presentation I was going to share, but I'm literally just going to be answering questions through the whole
yeah.
presentation. So yeah, keep going.
Great. So we have a question from Zelton. What major should I consider if I want to build skills that'll help me build a career towards a movie studio like Studio Ghibli? And to add to that, how do I build a portfolio towards that major?
That's a really good question. So if you want to work for a studio, first of all, there's film studios, there's television studios, there's animation studios, there's game studios, there's production studios. I mean, there's all kinds of studios out there. So we do think it's a good idea to try to figure out what industry you want to work in. And then once you know, let's say you want to work in the animation industry,
Oh, Gillis. Oh, sorry.
what?
Studio Gillis is an FX studio.
Okay, I was wondering, I'm like, Studio Ghibli.
I thought it was a typo. My bad.
No, that's okay. Studio Gillis is a VFX studio, they said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what I would say then is a, a studio like a VFX studio or an animation studio or a game studio, they hire all kinds of different artists, right? Because you need artists and designers at all different levels of production and whatever you're working on. So I would say, um, if you know the industry, like a VFX studio, right? Look at that industry, look at that studio's website, look at their credits, look at what the positions are that they're hiring. LinkedIn is a good resource for this as well. And then you can start to see, well, what kind of art are they making, right? What we recommend if a student comes to me with a particular studio or industry in mind, I'm going to look at our majors and say, okay, what is the most aligned with that, right? But it could be a number of things. They could hire illustrators, they could hire animators, they could hire concept artists. Probably generally speaking, I would say entertainment design is probably the major at LCAD that you're going to want to focus on. And remember that when you're coming to LCAD and we're training you for 4 years and we're awarding you a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, we're preparing you for that industry. Yes, there may be a specific job that you want to do, but if you look at the curriculum for each major, for instance, we'll go to entertainment design on our website. We're preparing you for the whole industry, and the industry is going to be looking for all kinds of different things. Okay, so you can go to the entertainment design page on our website. You can look at the course requirements. You can see what kind of courses you're going to be taking in this curriculum, what you're going to be learning. You can look at these are the different places that have hired students that have graduated from our not only graduated from our school, but also the people that are teaching you, our faculty, are all people that have worked or are working for these places. Okay. Um, and then you can see examples of student work. So there's a lot of information here that'll help you decide whether or not this major is the right major for you. As always, your counselor is going to be somebody that you can ask questions to, and that's going to give you these answers. And if we don't know, guess what? I can go to Todd Smith. I can go to the chair of entertainment design and say, hey, I have a student who's interested in this. What would you recommend? And then we can provide you this information and these answers. I think generally speaking, VFX, I'm thinking entertainment design. But that's not to say that, we've had people from our animation program graduate and work for a game studio. We've had people from, Illustrate or our game art program graduate and work for architectural design firms. So, there's tons of possibilities out there. Okay. But the more we know about what you're interested in, the more we can guide you. And as far as making the art that is going to lead to the portfolio, that goes right back to the portfolio guidelines. Once you know that entertainment design is probably the major you're going to be aiming for, then you can go to our entertainment design guidelines and you can see exactly what you should be working on. Okay. Man, we got some good questions this session.
Yeah.
This is pretty great. Y'all are locked in. I love it. Okay, before I jump into the presentation, I just want to real quick mention that we do have a private YouTube channel that the admissions team uses. This is private, meaning you cannot search this, unfortunately. But when you work with your counselor, or if you are a senior and you open up your application and join the Discord, then we do have resources and links available here that feature some of these videos. But when you're working with your counselor, we can share with you different playlists that will help you with specific skills. For instance, if you're applying to graphic design or illustration and you need to learn to take better photos, we have like a quick 3 video playlist of like photography basics, how to take better photos, how to, have better lighting and composition, so on and so forth. And we have all kinds of playlists for lots of things. Animation, character expressions. Intro to figure drawing is probably the one that I share the most, just because figure drawing applies to so many of our majors. So yeah, make sure you bug your counselor and ask us for help, because that's what our job. That's what they pay us to do, is to help students. So, in terms of presentation, what I wanted to go into today, you did ask people their majors, right? What do we have mostly?
Uh, let's see. Got a few animation, we've got an entertainment design, couple game art, few
If you
illustration.
want, if you want, folks, you can edit your name in your window, in your Zoom window.
Yeah.
I graduated from the illustration program at LCAD and I worked for many years as an illustrator. So I'm just gonna put illustration next to my name there. If you feel like putting your major next to your name, you can do that. You don't have to, but it'd be an easy way to see, who's in the Zoom session with us today. Um, so what I was going to talk about, besides the resources, I really think the resources that we have available are the most important thing, because if for whatever reason you're not ready to share your work with a counselor, but you do want to work on stuff, now you have the guidelines, you know about line of action, you know about the website, and you can find the resources that you need. Um, I made this presentation a few years ago for students in our animation, game art, and entertainment design um, uh, pipelines, I guess you could say. They were planning to apply to one of these majors, and they were confused about what kind of art they should be making, or what kind of approach they should be taking to their art or to their characters that will help them get a good score with LCAD. Basha, any other questions popping up before I jump in?
Not yet. Someone asked if we have a photography major. Jason informed them that we have a minor available within graphic design and digital media.
Awesome, awesome. So, like I said, I made this presentation years ago, so some of the examples might be outdated. Somebody's trying to FaceTime me right now, but sorry, I'm working, I'm busy. So I'm going to start the slideshow. And so this is a very specific topic that I wanted to cover when I made this portfolio, because I wanted to point out that what we're looking for, if you're applying to animation or game art or entertainment design, is a drawing-based portfolio. Okay, and what does that mean? I was seeing a lot of students that were making art for their portfolio, and because they were using Procreate or Clip Studio or one of the other free, drawing programs on their tablets. They were making highly rendered, highly digital illustrations, and they were using a lot of like the digital tools that are available and accessible these days. And unfortunately, that was hurting their score. Now, don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying you can't make digital art. Absolutely. But we want to make sure that when you're making your digital art that you're emphasizing the drawing ability above all else, okay? So when we say drawing based at LCAD, we're talking about still life drawing or figure drawing, which includes contour drawing, shading and rendering. What we're not talking about is abstract drawing or drawing from your imagination, not yet. Okay, there will be a time where you're drawing from your imagination, but in order to draw a figure or a character from your imagination, you need to learn anatomy, put that anatomy information into your brain, and then your imagination can pull it out when you want to draw a character. Okay, so I think that's a really important step. So still life contour drawings. Okay, contour drawing just means that you're drawing with lines and you're not doing shading or rendering or blending or cross hatching. It means you're just focusing on the line work. Okay, and usually when you first start contour drawing, you tend to draw really slow because as you're drawing, you're looking at proportions and stuff like that, right? You're trying to get the lines right. You don't want your drawings to look wonky. You don't, if you draw a cup like this or a jar, you don't want it to look like it's melting and it's falling over to one side. So you're drawing really slow in order to get the lines right, okay? This is still life contour. Still life just means any inanimate object, okay? Um, and when you're drawing a still life with contour drawing, oftentimes you're thinking in terms of like form and structure. And so, like, for example, this is one of my practice drawings from when I was a freshman at LCAD a long, 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 long time ago. Okay. And this is how we were learning how to think about an object in 3 dimensions so that our drawings felt more, I don't know, like they felt more real because if I drew a tea kettle, it felt like it was actually sitting on something, like on a surface, as opposed to being very flat. Okay. And so sometimes you have to draw guiding lines for yourself that you're gonna erase later, and you're drawing them really lightly. So that's contour still life drawing, and that applies to all of the majors that you see right there listed on the right.
Really
Um,
quick,
yeah.
for concerning still life drawing and stuff, we asked, would still life paintings still count, or would you prefer just paper and charcoal or graphite?
No, you can do still life paintings as well. Those will apply to most majors, but to be honest with you, a painting of a still life is probably going to be most important if you're applying to drawing and painting. Certainly, if you're good at doing still life paintings, and you're applying to illustration or game art or animation, throw them in there for sure. Show them to your counselor first. If your counselor thinks they're good enough, put them in your portfolio. But but some of these are going to be more important for some majors than others. Definitely for drawing and painting, we absolutely want to see painted still lifes. So we talked about contour drawing. Now we're talking about rendering. This is, to me, I call this the icing on the cake, right? If contour drawing is learning how to bake, then rendering is putting the icing on your fully baked cake, right? And this is cross hatching, blending, shading, all of that is rendering, okay? Remember, that rendering is not gonna fix your drawing if this step didn't go well. Okay? I think that's really important to understand. If you're not getting this step right, this step is not gonna look good. Okay. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of younger, inexperienced artists make is they think if they render it, then it's gonna cover all of the mistakes. But we are trained artists. The people that are evaluating your art school portfolio, we've all done this already. We're trained and we know what to look for. So we're always going to look for good structure first, good drawing first, and then we're going to come to appreciate your rendering, okay? Rendering is not as important for as many majors as good contour drawing is. You can certainly show off your rendered still lifes in any of these majors, but you don't have to. The drawing, the contour drawing is always going to be more important. Okay. Also, rendering takes a long time. And if you're like me, anytime I decide to render something, halfway through, I'm like, oh, why did I decide to render this thing? Now I gotta finish it. Because sometimes, it can get kind of repetitive. So if rendering is not your thing, don't worry about it. Focus on the drawing stage and you will get just as good a score at LCAD. Okay. Now we're talking about figure drawing. So still lives are inanimate objects. Um, and figure drawing obviously now refers to drawing the human form or the figure, right? Um, Again, we start with contour drawing, just line work. No, little to no shading, cross hatching, blending, any of that stuff. Just focus on the line. Just like with contour drawing, you're drawing slow at first and you're thinking about the proportions, right? How long is this calf? How wide is the ankle compared to the length of the calf? How long is the foot compared to the length of the calf, right? So you're constantly judging and thinking about proportions. If they make if the artist makes this leg here, let me see if I'm gonna try some of these I always laugh when I try to draw with these zoom um tools here. But let's say you're drawing this calf here, and let's say you decide to draw the calf, you know like that, right? And then that's the foot there, right? Com Compared to the rest of the figure, that's a really long calf or lower leg and foot, right? That's way too long, proportionally speaking. Not to say that human beings don't all come in different shapes and sizes, we do, but you want to keep things proportional so that they feel like they make sense, and they're not too heavily stylized, right? Um, so look for proportions when you draw, especially when you're drawing figures. Um, Moving on. Oh wait, I'm still in contour. I'm still in drawing mode. Okay, here we go. So again, the line of action would be a great tool for this if you can't get in front of a live model. And figure drawing in contour is going to be appropriate for so almost all of our majors. So definitely, this is something we want to see. Do you have to show us this? No. Is it going to hurt your score if you don't show us figure drawing? Absolutely, it's going to hurt your score. Okay, so do some figure drawing. Um, and then we have shape or cross contour drawing. Some people call this constructive drawing. It has lots of different terminology that is used to describe it. This is more like thinking through the forms and breaking down the human figure a little more into basic shapes. Proco, I think if you guys know about the YouTube channel Proco, that's a great drawing tutorial channel. He calls this mannequinization, where you're sort of starting to draw the human figure more like as a mannequin because you're breaking it down into basic forms and shapes. This is a great way to start to think of the human figure in 3 dimensions and not think of it in as a flat object. Okay. Here we go. Here's one of my drawings when I was learning how to break down the human form into like cylinders and like different forms, right? So this is a really, really good tool or good practice exercise. And if these are good enough, your counselor is going to want you to include some of this stuff in your portfolio. Okay, rendering. To me, this is the kind of drawing, like if you're drawing people and you're shading and like cross-hatching and like blending and doing all this stuff, to me, this is the easiest way to impress people that don't draw, right? Like you don't even have to be that good at this, but if you're somewhat decent, you can post this and it's gonna get so many likes. And you can show this to your friends and family, and everyone's gonna think you're the most amazing artist ever, right? Because of that, because it's so impressive, um, I think this is a trap for a lot of young artists. Where, what did I say before about shading your still lives, right? If you don't get this part right, rendering and shading it is not going to fix it and make it look good. And the same thing applies to your figures. If you don't get this part right, then shading it is not going to fix it. And any trained artist is going to be able to notice that immediately. And for LCAD, it's going to lower your score. So we don't want you to spend time rendering your figures if you still have to improve in your basic form and structure and anatomy and proportion. Okay. But if you're pretty good at those things and you want to render some figures, by all means, you can do that. but this is not going to be as important to as many majors as the other types of drawings. You know, for a rendered figure drawing like this, game art, entertainment design, illustration, drawing, and painting. That's it, really. As an animator, I really wouldn't recommend you spend your time making these kinds of drawings. One, they take a long time, and two, an animator is going to be more concerned with what we're going to talk about next, which is gesture drawing, not so much rendering realistic figures. Okay. So when we get into gesture drawing, this is an approach to figure drawing that is usually faster and emphasizes movement and gesture and exaggeration. Okay, this is kind of like bringing your figures drawings to life. And you know, when you think of it that way, it makes sense that it's really important to animators, right? Um, Funny thing about this type of drawing is I feel like for people that don't draw, they're not really that impressed by this. You know, like it kind of looks like stick figures sometimes, okay? Especially, you know, if you're looking at something like this, people that don't draw, they're going to be super impressed by this. Rightfully so. I get it. But if you ask me, gesture drawing is probably the hardest type of drawing to do because here usually you only have a few minutes or even a few seconds to draw the figure and you're drawing very quickly, and the reason you're focusing on gesture and movement and exaggeration and not form and structure is because you already know form and structure. You're doing that without thinking about it, kind of, right? And so this may look like scribbles or like stick figures to the average person, but this is actually very difficult to do. It's going to impress us no matter what for any major, but I would say this is most important for animation or experimental animation because that's what animators are doing. They're bringing their character drawings to life through movement and, you know, expressiveness and those things.
So really quick, Ray,
Yeah,
in chat, one of the students, Jason's already like answered the question in the chat for them, but I wanted other people in case they weren't reading the chat to hear this.
for
Um,
sure.
if you're wanting to build an animation portfolio, they asked, do you have to animate a figure or is it just the pictures, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. You do not have to actually include any animation whatsoever in your animation portfolio, okay? Um, we are more interested in your drawings. And the reason for that is there's so many different ways to animate things these days. There's so many different techniques, and it can be very time consuming. um, we have professional animators. I mean, crazy, famous, popular, experienced animators that work in at our school that they're gonna guide you towards the, you know, the proper animation techniques that you want to learn. Um, it can be fun to animate things. Definitely, if that's your dream is to be an animator, I'm sure you can't wait to bring your drawings to life. But they take so much time to make that oftentimes you'll have to sacrifice your foundational skills, right? You know, maybe you're not studying figure drawing as much as you should because you're trying to animate something. Maybe you're not learning anatomy as well as you should because you're trying to animate something. So I would say, you know, if you want to experiment with animation, by all means, go for it. But find a balance between that and improving your drawing skill. Because when it comes down to it, a good animation is not going to raise your score that much at LCAD in your portfolio. But good figure drawings are absolutely going to erase your score more. So think about what's going to pay off for you more at this stage, okay? And so we definitely would rather see good drawings rather than something that's animated in your portfolio. That being said, if you have ever animated something, yeah, put it in your portfolio, absolutely, and we'll give you a slight bump for that, okay? Okay, so now we're moving from drawing to painting. Okay, when it comes to painting, um, it doesn't apply to all of our majors, but if you want to include it, you can. Understand that the same rules apply for us as they do to drawing. We're gonna be looking for form and structure first. Okay, The reason I included these examples when I made this presentation is because I wanted to show students that you don't have to paint anything really extravagant or ambitious or mind-blowing, you know? It can be a painting of your bathroom sink. It can be a painting of some fruit. That's okay. That can also be impressive and it can also help your portfolio. We're thinking about how you're approaching your painting. We're thinking about how good is the drawing and the structure and the perspective and that sort of thing. We're looking at the light logic. We're looking at your color choices. We're looking at your compositional choices. All of those things are going to help your score no matter what your painting is of. Okay. Um, if you want to do a portrait, you can do that as well. Traditional painting, if you're painting in acrylic or oil paint or gouache or watercolor, those are all traditional mediums that we typically see paintings done in. And they're going to be probably most important or most, uh, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Relevant to these majors here. The last one, especially drawing and painting. Okay. And I would say illustration too, probably. You can do digital painting as well. When it comes to digital painting, I think, in my experience, if you have any experience with traditional painting, that tends to lead to better digital paintings. And when I say better, I mean digital paintings where the digital medium is still sort of being treated like a traditional approach. Okay. So I would say heavy on strong light logic, drawing skills, color choices, compositional choices, okay? Heavy on those things. Light on the fancy downloadable brush packs, um, blur tools. Please don't use blur tools, okay? Just not a good choice. It's sort of a shortcut that, if you want to de-emphasize the background of your illustration, rather than blur it, I'm much more interested to see how do you de-emphasize your background with color choices, with lighting choices, with compositional choices, rather than just using a blur tool to just blur everything. Okay, so that's what we're looking for when it comes to digital paintings. Okay, and honestly, these sorts of paintings are really only applicable to our game art or entertainment design and illustration portfolios, heavy on the illustration portfolio. That being said, if you're an animator and you're designing a background, or you're making a keyframe illustration and you want to do a digital painting of that keyframe illustration, by all means, go ahead and do that. But you better have good drawing in there and good perspective, okay? And that's something that your counselor can help you with. Um,
Right, really quick before we move on to expressions.
yeah.
Uh, Oscar asked, is form and shape, or in like construction shape, more important than like let's say it's perspective and anatomy? Is their question.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that when you're talking about anatomy, I think form and shape apply to that,
Hmm.
right? When we say form and shape, like literally when you're drawing anatomy, you should be thinking about form and shape, right? I think the same thing goes for perspective. When you're talking about perspective, I think form and shape apply. Let me real quick, that's because that's such a good question. It's just making my brain think of something that I want to share. So let me real quick, let me exit the presentation and let me go back into review mode and let me go into my creative process folder and let me show you something that this is making me think of. Okay. So sorry for the quick scrolling. Um, oh, it's not in here. Hold on. Um, Maybe it's in here. Boom. All right, great. It's in here. Um, let's see. It's not in here. Dang. I could have sworn I had it in this folder. What folder would I have it in? Maybe not creative process. I'm thinking of like perspective. Maybe in, let's go back into portfolios. Oh, I can't see it because of my Zoom window. Portfolios. Um, Let me go into review mode. Let me go into storytelling. All right, good. Here we go. I can use this. Okay, so um, let's see. I'm looking for an example. So if we look at something like an image like this, okay? I really like this image. Um, I like it because it gives a really strong storytelling moment. And I think what makes this so strong is the interaction between the characters, okay? I love the facial expressions. I love the body language. I feel like there's a subtle interplay between how these characters are interacting and even the look of this character's face, right? There's just a really fun moment going on between these characters. So it gets high marks for that, okay? Here's where I would give this image maybe low marks. It's a very flat image. There's really no perspective in this image, right? Now there's space, and this student is using or this artist, I should say, is using layering to indicate space. They're also using the blur tool, womp womp. That's okay. We'll ignore that for now. But you have these elements in the front corners here. That's very close to the camera, and that indicates a foreground. And then you have the midground, which is where the characters are telling us their story. And then you have these curtains in the background, right? So they're doing a good job of using these elements to create distance, but there's no perspective, right? There's no like form here in regards to the environment. Now let's look at this drawing or this sketch, okay? This sketch has amazing form and has, to me, very high level perspective going on. Now, is it as finished and rendered as the previous image? No. And there's no characters in here, and that's fine. That's not the point of this image. But if you're just looking at like space and distance, if you're talking about form and perspective, there is a ton of that going on in this image. And I am equally as impressed by this image as I am by this image, but for very different reasons. Okay. Here, the storytelling is very strong. Here, the perspective and the inventive, invented space is very, very strong in my opinion. So when you're talking about form and you're talking about like three dimensionality and you're talking about structure, this shows all of that. And if those are not your strong suits, that's okay. I mean, you should still work on those things, but let your counselor help guide you towards the strongest pieces to put in your portfolio. By the way, anyone that wants to practice perspective, I would not ask them to do this. I would tell them, don't try to do this. You're just gonna like be frustrated, right? I would say instead, in order to learn how to do something like this, you should probably go sit somewhere and draw some buildings and just practice your perspective like this. Okay? Because like I said before you can pull it out of your imagination, you have to put it in your brain. And this is putting it in your brain, right? So you practice this kind of drawing enough, then later on, when you want to imagine something like this, you can do it, provided that you've studied perspective, right? Um, if we're talking about lifting, weights, this is to me, this is like lifting, 400 pounds. And this is like, maybe lifting 10 pounds, 15 pounds. You know what I mean? You got to start here. Don't start here. You will just become discouraged if you're not ready for this kind of challenge. Okay. So that's my advice is, you want to practice your form and you want to practice your structure. Start by drawing from observation. Start by drawing things not just like this, but even, the still lives that I was talking about in the beginning of this presentation. There's a reason why I start here. This is where most good drawing starts. Not as exciting as drawing characters, but you got to work your way up to that sometimes. Okay. Man, there's so many more. examples that I want to give that I wish I had at my fingertips right now, but I honestly don't know where they are on my laptop. So we're gonna move on with the presentation. Any other questions, Basha, before we move on?
Yes, I have a question from Kinsley. So if one of my art styles is more individual, if if my art style is more individual to me and may compromise anatomy somewhat, would you suggest I avoid showing that side of my art or just make sure I highlight that still? Their goal is for majoring in animation.
Who asked that question?
Kinsley.
Kinsley, that is an amazing question. I love that question, and I'm glad that you're thinking about that. My answer to you is we want to see both. Okay, we want to see whatever styles you like to draw in. However, you got to prove to us. Remember that you're applying to school. You're going through an application process, and that means that you're going to be evaluated, okay? Most of us, almost all of us, I would say, when we start drawing when we're kids, it is about freedom. It is about creativity. It is about expression, right? There's no rules when we draw. We do all of our homework and we go to school and we do all our chores or whatnot. And then when we have time to ourselves, what do? We draw. Why? Because we're the we're in charge of that practice, and it feels tremendously creative, and it feels very free to just sit down and draw what we want to draw and draw it in the style that we want to draw it. Okay. And that's great, but now you're applying to art school. Why? Because you want to be a professional artist. And with that comes expectations. Okay. So now when you're making a portfolio, it's not just about drawing whatever you want, however you want. You're going to be evaluated. You want to get a good score, you want to get accepted, and you want to get a good scholarship. So I'm not saying you can't draw in this style. This style is inherently flat. It's not really emphasizing form and structure. That's not the point of this style. I love this style, by the way. I think it's super cute. It's super fun. I really like this. However, if I was going to put this style in my portfolio, I would make sure to also put drawings like this in my portfolio where I'm showing, hey, look, I know I like to draw triangles as noses because that's my style, but it's not because I don't know how to draw noses. I'm willing to do the work to show or to learn how to draw the proper structure of a human nose, right? So if you show us that, if you show us this, if you show us, that you're thinking like this and not like this, then you are going to get a better score. Okay. So, no, I wouldn't say edit one of your styles out completely, but show us that a style is not a limitation of skill. Style should be your choice. It should be your preference, not, oh, that's the only way I know how to draw. Okay, that's not really a style. Okay, and if you're going to art school, you're saying, I want to learn. I want to be taught how to do, art. So for my industry. So that's what I would suggest.
Another question
Yeah.
from V. This feels kind of related. I remember being told 50% fan art is okay. I don't know who told you that, but trying to avoid it, does fan art impact our score for the review? Should we avoid it altogether?
That's a good question too. I mean, I think that definitely go to the school that you're applying to and ask them how they feel about fan art. I know for us, I mean, I've been doing this job a long time, and our perspective on fan art has changed over the years. When I first started doing this job, I would tell students, do not put fan art in your portfolio. But that's not the case now. And the reason why we used to say that is because when we're looking at your portfolio, we want to give you credit. We're trying to give you points for your awesome art, okay? And if you are putting a character, let's say you drew, I haven't seen this movie, but what's this character called?
Maui.
Thank you, Maui. So, um if you're drawing Maui and you're making your own fan art of Maui, then we can give you credit for the drawing, but you know what we can't give you credit for? The character design. Why? Because you didn't design that character. That character was already designed by somebody else, and you're making a drawing of that character. And that drawing may be a good drawing, right? But we want to give you as much credit as possible. So if you're going to make drawings of characters, why not design them so that now we can give you all the credit? We can give you credit for the drawing, for the design, for all of it. That being said, there is a place for fan art. So, like Basha, what would you say about a student, first of all, what majors do you think is it more appropriate to put fan art and either than others?
I think for that first question, what is appropriate for fan art? I think definitely for illustration, for the animation programs, and for potentially game art,
Hmm.
only because when I see fan art that I think is completely fine to put in a portfolio, it's when you have kind of created your own interpretation of a design, right? It's kind of like finding that middle ground. For illustration, definitely, because oftentimes you are um, being able to apply a character. Sometimes it's like set by like a writer or some kind of company or a clientele that you're working with, and you can like set that up for production or a billboard or comics. Or maybe as an animator, you're working for an animation studio and they set you a already set up character like Maui here, for instance, and you have to like flex your style into the style look that they have for Maui already, right? So there's definitely, some leeway with this. But
Hmm.
like what Ray was saying, we would rather much see your ability to design a character than what you can just like be a photocopier. We've also seen some students that just take like manga panels or comic panels and they redraw those panels. And it's like, we don't want to see photocopiers. We want to see you being able to stretch your brain a bit.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Um, you may be happier with your art or with your drawing when you're basing it heavily on something that already exists, but how much are you really learning there? And I think the question that I put to students is, I think, you should think about, um, are you trying to get better or are you trying to get compliments, right? If
Yeah.
you're trying to get compliments, then it's not about what you're learning. It's just about, putting, something that looks the right, quote unquote, the right way. But we want to know where you're at and we want to know that you're very interested in getting better because that's the point of you investing in art school, right? Is to be taught. So, and be open-minded. Listen, I made a lot of horrible drawings in art school. Why? Because I was trying new things. I was learning. I was, being asked to draw things and draw in a way that I had never drawn before. And so if I was afraid to make ugly drawings, I wouldn't have learned as much, right? But I said, okay, I'm here to learn, so I'm gonna try this, even though even though I suck at drawing faces or I suck at drawing hands or whatever. The only way to get better is to do it. And so, what do they say? Like, you get all the bad drawings out of the way so that you can start making the good drawings. And there's no way around that. Like, either way, you're gonna, those bad drawings are there and you need to get through them. So why not get through them in school, as early as possible?
To follow up with that, what about for Maya, what about characters you've designed but exist within a universe of some like IP, like a piece of media? Say, we've seen it all before, Ray, in the
Yeah.
meeting. Like, we've seen the Spidey Sonas and the Sonic OCs and things like that. So what about a fan-made character for an IP that's already been set?
That's awesome. Actually, I think that's even really cool because now you're doing
Right?
two things. Now you're like if you want to create a new Avenger, for the MCU, that means that now you're coming up with your own character, but you are following the guidelines set by the existing IP already, and you're trying to fit that design into that. That's a big challenge, and I actually would probably give that a lot of points.
Great. And then would you from Aaron, would you recommend doing a celebrity portrait, one that may be highly stylized?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go for it. Especially if you're applying to illustration. Yeah, for sure. Tell a story, you know. Caricature is a thing. My only advice there would be don't just do one, do four of them. Do
Mhm.
six of them and put them all on the same page. Every page should have a lot of drawings. Speaking of fan art and speaking of like lots of art on one page. This is somebody who applied to our game art program many years ago, but I kept this image because I was really impressed by it. This is a redesign. This is fan art, technically. They're redesigning Nausicaa from the Studio Ghibli property. And they're doing some character exploration. They're trying to redesign this existing character to put a new twist on the character. And look at how many drawings are on this. This is one page in a portfolio. Okay. Um, but if you zoom in, you can see they're not this is not about rendering finished art to make it look all slick and polished and they're not doing like a new layer where they're doing like finished line art and they're not doing all that stuff. This is just sketching. They're just it's almost like doodling. They're just trying to figure out like, oh, she's going to be wearing a hat. Okay, what's the shape of the hat? Maybe goggles, maybe not, maybe boots, maybe knee pads. Let's try out different things and see what kind of look we want to give. And then to me, this is like gesture drawing, but with characters. It's very difficult to do. And then the closer you get to figuring out, your finished design, maybe the more time you can spend putting in more details. But again, if I zoom in, you'll see that this is not super rendered and super detailed. It's actually still pretty loose. So yeah, there's an example.
Another question for from Oscar. If I want to minor in game art but major in illustration, should I include examples of character design and such in my portfolio?
Minor in game art, but major in what?
Illustration.
So I would say the illustration major, like if that's the major you're applying to, you could put character design in an illustration portfolio. As far as your minor, that doesn't have any impact on your portfolio whatsoever. The minor comes later. You don't need to include anything for a minor that you plan on taking, at some point. Just focus on the major that you're applying to and just build a portfolio for that major. And illustration can definitely include some character designs. Yeah.
All right. So we only have maybe it's already 6:12.
And
So
time
I
flies,
was
right?
I was thinking I really would like for you to at least get through some more of your presentation. Should we like have you guys like hold questions?
I'll go through this real quick. I would like to answer some more questions since we're all here. Jason,
Yeah.
do you have something? Oh, okay. Um, so expression sheets, this is specific to our animators, okay? Once you have your characters, we want to see your characters' facial expressions. This is very difficult to do. It's not easy to create new facial expressions for your characters. I would recommend, if you're working on an animation portfolio, save this to the end, okay? Like get all your drawing practice, get as much drawing practice as possible before you try to do expressions. Notice that these examples are all just pencil drawings, okay? The reason I chose these examples is because I want to emphasize you don't have to make finished digital art of your characters. In fact, we would prefer you focus on the drawing or the sketchy quality of your drawing, okay? Especially for animators, like think of like pencil roughs. Think of animation pencil roughs that you've seen. That's kind of, what we want you to aim for. And again, finishing art, coloring and doing all the final line work, all that stuff takes a long time. So we'd rather you focus on the drawings themselves. And while we're on the topic of character expressions, here's something to avoid, okay? Try to avoid emoji faces. Try to avoid stock character expressions where you're just changing the shape of the eyes and the mouth and you're, relying on that. We want you to really think about the unique facial expressions that your characters are making. So if your character smiles, right, and they have cheeks, then their cheeks, the top of their cheek is going to change the shape of their eye because they're smiling, right? And if they open their mouth really wide because they're shocked at what they're looking at, then their jaw is going to stretch down if their mouth is going to be open really wide. And that's going to change the shape of their face. So think about that. it's not, I might be, I don't know if this toy is still relevant, but you're not dealing with a Mr. Potato Head where, the face just stays the same and the same shape and you're just swapping out the eyes and the mouth. That's not what we're going for. I have some more examples of that in character expressions, I think. Expression sheets. Here we go. Here's some more examples. So, real quick, another Mr. Potato Head example. This is what we're not going for. If you notice, the hair, the face, the chin never changes. Whether the mouth is closed or whether the mouth is open wide in shock, the chin does not move whatsoever. That is not what we're going for here, okay? What we're going for, ideally, a three-quarter angle, okay, not looking straight ahead. And if this character is scrunching their eyes down, then their head shape is going to be one way. And if their eyes are open wide and their mouth is open wide in shock, it completely stretches the shape of their face. So, this is not easy. Reach out to your counselor if you're struggling, because guess what? We have a whole playlist for improving your facial expressions for your characters. So let us help you. Okay. Um, let's wrap this up real quick. So character and creature design. This applies to animation, to game art, to illustration, to entertainment design. Remember, they don't have to be finished drawings. They can be one finished full color pose if you want, but the rest of them, I'd love to see you emphasize your drawing ability. Also, think about shape language and how not every character should look exactly the same. Um, you know, Try varying the size and height and shape of your characters to make them stand out from each other. Remember that your character poses should be full body poses from head to toe, and they should give us an idea of what the character is thinking or feeling. Okay, make them expressive poses. Um, Environment and architecture, there's very different ways you can approach this. You can be designing something like a this looks like a boat, a houseboat that's stuck on that's perched on the top of a rock formation. Look at, there's three different ways that you could approach that what I just described here. And so this person is showing ideation. They're exploring that concept and showing us sketches that show different versions of that thing that I just described. Or if you want to design an environment and illustrate it and show off your digital painting skills, you can do that as well. What I like about this one is that, like I mentioned before, they indicate a strong foreground element, midground, which is usually where the characters are going to tell a story, and then background element back there. Um, I don't know how relevant this is anymore, but there's a thing. Moving on. If you just are comfortable just drawing and sketching things, please do, because in my opinion, that's the hardest way to do it. If you're gonna show us a lot of digital art and like digitally rendered art, we're gonna want to see some basic drawing from you at some point in your portfolio. Okay. Um, Ideation is just, I mentioned it a couple times before, it's just exploring an idea. It's just showing different versions of whatever it is you're drawing to show that you're really thinking about what are some different ways that I can execute this, whether it's a character design like a medieval knight character, or whether it's a weapon design, something like this. And it doesn't have to be digital, like I keep saying. If you want to explain your design by pointing out certain elements, you can certainly do that as well. Silhouettes. If you're attempting silhouettes, I think they're really only appropriate to game art and entertainment design. There's a very specific reason for doing silhouettes. What I wouldn't suggest is you draw your finished character and then just outline it and fill it with black. That's not the point of a silhouette. A silhouette is meant to explore the shapes of your characters and to maybe explore like different versions of your character. So if you have questions about that, reach out to your counselor, okay? Storytelling images are just that. They're images that tell a story. Sometimes they're called keyframes, or scenes. This is basically, an illustration that is depicting some moment in a story. Perspective comes in handy here, big time. Sometimes digital painting skills can come in handy here as well. If you have questions about your storytelling images, what I would recommend is what some students do with me is they'll send me their sketch. Let me show you an example. Storytelling. So they'll do this where they'll try out different compositions before they start the finished illustration. These are thumbnails, okay? And they'll just try out different thumbnails of their illustration. This is like the planning stage. Or they'll do a sketch and they'll send it to me before they spend hours finishing it, and they'll say, "Hey Ray, what do you think of this? Is this looking good? Is it clear? What can I do to improve this?" My advice to this student was, hey, think of putting a foreground element in there. Otherwise, I like what's going on. I like the story element. But yeah, you can do that as well. Your counselors are your biggest help and your biggest resource. I think that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Question?
Any last second questions from you guys?
Yeah, we'll give you like another 10 minutes. We'll wrap up in about 10 minutes. But if you have any questions now before you go, please ask.
Question from Morgan. I want to become a concept artist for the entertainment industry, mainly film, TV, and comics. What would be the best major for that?
Ooh, what do you think, Basha? I
I
think,
think
go ahead.
I think it would be entertainment design.
Yes, I think so as well. Entertainment design is it. Remember that lots of different industries hire concept artists, right? So if let's say you want to do concept art for Pixar, okay? Then I would say go into the animation program. And you might say, yeah, but I don't want to be an animator. Your animators have to make an animated film before they graduate. I don't want to make an animated film. I just want to do concept art. And I'm going to say to you, okay, but if you want to do concept art for Pixar, then they're gonna they're gonna want to hire you a lot more if you understand the animation industry and you understand what animators do, so that when you're making concept art for animators, you are more in touch with what they're looking for, right? So go into the animation program and you're going to learn how to make character designs and concept art and backgrounds for animation, and that's going to make you better for that industry, and that's going to make you better at that specific job. So it all depends on what industry you want to go in, but like you're saying film, then I would say definitely entertainment design.
From V, about the essay, does it also affect acceptance and scholarship, or is it to get a vibe on us as a student? Also, any generic tips for the essays?
Oh, that's a great question. I definitely think it's the second thing that you said, which is just to get a general vibe of the student. I've never, in my 10 years of doing this job, I've never heard of an essay um, getting a student denied. Okay, so don't worry about your essay. Okay, this is art school. Your portfolio is what your essay would be to like a non-art college, right? Where they're like, oh my God, stressed out about your essay, do, 4 different drafts, and it's got to be a 2,000, 3,000 word essay. That for art school, that's your portfolio. Okay, that's what you should stress about, your portfolio. But your essay for LCAD, it's between 300 to 500 words. It's a very straightforward prompt on your application. It's not that big of a deal. We're just trying to get a vibe for you. Just be honest in your essay and don't write more than 500 words.
Next question from Sarah. I love to do comics plus storytelling with my art. Would I focus more in painting and drawing, or should I focus on painting and drawing or stick with illustration?
Ooh, um, what do you think, Basha?
So the thing is, with an emphasis of illustration and painting and drawing and painting, you can utilize visual storytelling elements, but if you love comics and if you love like storytelling, like children's book illustration, I feel like illustration might be better suited because you can go ahead and utilize design elements within your style to better showcase the story, the genre that you're trying to showcase. Plus, if you
Yeah.
want to go into comics, if you want to go into children's book illustration, um, it's illustrations program is also about setting up your files for production, for working for publishing companies, for getting your work ready for reproduction even.
Hmm.
So there are certain skill sets that go beyond just the visual side of things too.
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it. Um, I just like having stuff on in the background. So I queued up this character design tutorial from Night Zhang, who attended LCAD's campus for years, and is now currently working at Rockstar still. Basha, do you know?
I thought they were at Riot currently.
Riot. Sorry, Riot. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, they might have been at Rockstar for a little bit. They're at Riot currently. And then they also do they teach, they do seminars and stuff. Um,
Awesome.
Next question, how is the creative writing minor? I specifically want to write comics and possibly books. Are the teachers writers in the industry or the professors at LCAD, like, do they write professionally?
Yeah, I would say almost all of our teachers have industry experience. Very few that do not, but even the ones that do not have been doing it for years. But most of our instructors do have direct industry experience. The creative writing minor, the way we approach minors at this school is somewhat of an independent study. You are going to be taking classes, extra courses each semester. I don't know. Does anyone know off the top of your head how many extra courses is it to take a minor at LCAD?
Our Justin Yeskis, one of the other admissions counselors, he actually has the writing minor when he graduated from LCAD. So he knows. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think it was 4 or 5 extra classes.
It's 5.
Five. All right. So yeah, those classes are going to be on top of your full schedule in your major as well. Okay. So what we like to say is if you're thinking about taking on a minor, do at least a semester or two without the minor first, just to give yourself time to acclimate to the workload. And then you can talk to your chair about adding a minor. Adding a minor is free. And it doesn't add any cost to your tuition, and you work with the chair of that program to discuss your goals and what you want to get out of it. So I know Justin is, I believe you're working in comic books, right? So I can see how that creative writing minor was probably like really helpful to your ultimate goals.
Next question, do you know any animation websites that are free and easy to learn? Um, I'm not sure if they mean how to animate or maybe, oh, well, I can't, if you want to learn character design in terms of for the scope of animation, there is characterdesignreferences.com. It's an incredible archive. Characterdesignreferences.com. It's essentially like a massive blog archive.
Wow.
I love this
Whoa.
website. It's been
That is
around for a
cool.
long time, and this is a great way to, it's artist interviews, it's huge blog pages for showcasing behind the scenes art and concept work for anime, for movies, for television series.
What's the one? There's one that I recommend. Oh God, I don't have it saved. I can't believe I don't have it saved anymore. Um, I don't know why this one's saved. Let's find out. Oh, never mind.
Is
There
it
was
gone?
one that I use. There was one I used to use for animation. When I used to look at Aladdin production art. Aladdin is Aladdin with two D's? Yeah, Aladdin
Yeah.
production art. Is it character design reference? No. Do you remember the website, Jason? What was it called?
Living Lines Library.
Yes, thank you. Living Lines Library. Oh my God, this one is great. So I usually go straight to the production art page. Look at all of these animation titles. There is production art for
Great.
all of these animation titles. There's my cat. It's getting close to feeding time, so of course he's coming over here to remind me, as if I would forget to feed him. Um, but anyway, yeah, there's tons of titles here. My favorite one to reference is Aladdin because you can go into like the character design and you can actually see how they come up with the shapes of the characters to make sure that they're all different and unique. And you see their first attempts at sketching Aladdin before when they were still trying to figure out what this character was going to look like. So this is all ideation and character exploration. And then little by little, you see them nail down the proportions. And then you start to see them figure out how Aladdin's going to move as a character and the facial expressions, the body language, all of that stuff. I love this resource, and Glenn Keane is a master. So yeah, you can just keep scrolling, and I'll just scroll through this sometimes just to see how they work out all of the character movements and the personality that comes through each character. If you scroll far enough, you get down to the other characters as well, like Princess Jasmine and the genie and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's a good one too.
Next question from V. Does the timing of applying affect the merit scholarship? When's the best time to apply if I'm wanting to transfer this bill?
That's a great question. It can affect your merit scholarship slightly, but remember there's no deadline to apply to LCAD. We accept students almost all year round. Um, our advice is to submit your application when your portfolio is ready. And you can decide with the help of your counselor when that is, you know? Remember that just like every other college in the United States, just about, our tuition goes up slightly every year. So the longer you wait to come to LCAD, the more expensive, albeit slightly, but still, the more expensive it's going to be. So you may be getting better and you may be making a better portfolio if you wait longer. But if tuition's going to go up slightly, and then really, what kind of ground are you gaining there, right? So I would say just worry more about when your portfolio is ready. That being said, in March we do offer additional scholarship. So if you want to apply for that additional scholarship in March, then you should be accepted before then, before the end of March. So for a lot of my students, I'm telling them to apply now. Apply in February and March if you want that addition, you want to apply for that additional scholarship at the end of March, right? That being said, if your portfolio is not ready, don't rush to try to get it done by then if you still have some work to do, okay? Because aside from our own additional scholarship that we offer in March, there's other organizations and there's other brands and companies out there that also are offering scholarship that you can apply for, okay? Oh, I should probably mention the housing deadline, huh?
Maybe.
If if you're applying for our very limited student housing, mind you, most of our students do not live in our student housing. Over 90% of our students live off campus. I lived off campus when I was an LCAD student. That's pretty normal for coming to LCAD. But if you want to apply for our housing, the application, the first deadline is April 1st. So you have to be accepted already to apply for that. So, there's those kinds of dates that you should be aware of, but ultimately I think it comes down to your portfolio and when your portfolio is ready.
Another question from Morgan. What is the difference in standards for portfolios from transfer students from community college and students fresh out of high school? I'm a sophomore at a community college.
None.
Yeah.
None. Yeah, we just want to see good drawing, good design, good presentation, and follow the guidelines. That's it for everyone, for anyone.
Rick,
And
can you
then
speak on the difference between a transfer portfolio and an admissions portfolio?
Yeah, so when you're applying to LCAD, whether you're, a senior in high school or you're a student at a community college that's getting ready to transfer, when you apply to LCAD, you're making a portfolio for your application that's meant to get you accepted. That's your application portfolio, okay? Once you've been accepted to LCAD, you're going to want to know like, hey, well, what classes are going to transfer? Am I going to get credit for this class or that class? If you're a transfer student, those are things you want to know. Then you will work on your transfer portfolio. And your transfer portfolio is not meant to get you into the school. You're already in the school. It's just meant to show us what you learned in your community college classes that you want credit for. And then the chair of your major will look at your transfer portfolio and decide which art classes we're going to give you credit for based on your skills. We don't want you to skip a class at LCAD. You may have taken the class already at community college, but that doesn't mean we're going to skip you ahead if we feel you still need to work on those skills. And that's how we maintain a very high level of artist at our school, is to make sure that we're teaching you the things you need to know. We're not just going to skip you ahead just because you've taken the class somewhere already. The transfer portfolio is meant to show us where you're at, what level your skills are at. Any other
Any
questions?
last minute questions from you guys?
Yeah, I got to feed my cat soon. We got to go. We've been going for an hour and a half now.
The
This is good
Lakers are
so far.
playing.
All the Lakers are playing. Y'all had some good questions, though. I really appreciate this. Remember, we do this every month, the first Thursday of every month. And also, this has been recorded. We're gonna put it up on YouTube soon. So if you want to go back and watch it again, or if you know someone that had to dip out halfway through and they want to watch the rest of it, it'll be on YouTube soon.
And join the Discord.
And
Oh yeah,
join the
open an application if you're a senior. Join the Discord. Jason, was that right that they can't open an application until the beginning of their senior year, right?
Correct. Yeah, but admissions is always here to help y'all. So if you're a
Yes.
sophomore in high school, you still have a counselor available. You can still come and do a tour of the campus. And then when you are a senior, we'll have the Discord there for you guys when you join. So
Yes. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for coming through tonight. Wow, I'm looking at the chat now. It was jumping. Have a good night, everyone. If you want to come back to the next one on the first Thursday of March, we'll see you then. Reach out to your counselor for help. Do a one-on-one. Love to see your sketchbooks, whatever you want to share in a one-on-one meeting with your counselor. We love to see your art, and we can help you, point you in the right direction. We can help give you next steps for what you should be working on, so on and so forth. And if you want us to come talk to your classroom, to your art class, let your teacher know. Let them know that LCAD will come to the class and give a presentation like this to your high school art class or your college art class. Just let your teacher know, and we're happy to come out and we can meet in person and we can give a presentation like this in person as well.